So it hurts. And let me tell you why it hurts. I remember in high school, as kids would tease me at Blair, and they'd call me Oreo because they said I didn't talk like the other kids from the neighborhood, that I talked more proper, and so I was black on the outside and white on the inside. And when I heard my daughter come home the other day, and tell me that somebody had called her an Oreo as well, it hurt deeply, because it meant to me that while we think that we've gone so far, we still have so far to go. We have not eliminated the things that we know are incredibly hurtful to people, the things that continue to tear people down and tear people apart. That's not what we want to be as a society. And so I hope that people understand that they may think that it's funny, they may think that it's something simple, it's just a word, but it has tremendous impacts on people, and it lasts for a lifetime.
When I think about racism and my experiences of racism, now that I've become older, are less blatant. So I've had the experience of being called a n***. So that's a blatant form. That was decades ago. Some of the more subtle forms that I've experienced fall under the category of, or categories of microaggressions and microassaults. The microassault may be, you received some type of benefit of being non-white. That's a microaggression. That you got this job because of some type of quota system instead of by merit. They happen in policies and practices. They happen in these nuanced ways. When you have experienced acts that are that's smacked of white supremacy and racism, you feel it.
I've experienced racism a lot in my life. Growing up in the inner city, DC and Maryland, you experience it a lot. One time I remember vividly, I was walking from the basketball court, me and a couple of friends. I had a book bag on, and a cop, he told us to, what do we have in our book bags? He said, we need to check it. And knowing my rights, because my mom was real serious about teaching us rights, we told him no. So then we got handcuffed while they searched, and I remember the cop saying, I know you N-words have something in here, some type of drugs, but we didn't. And I was scared, but sadly I wasn't fazed, because growing up, you're taught to expect that. So, I knew it was gonna come at my door sometime, and boom. If I had a chance to talk to the cop, I let him know that you were wrong. I graduated top of my class in high school. I got a bachelor's degree. I knew pretty good for myself. I have a solid family. I'm an upstanding citizen. I go to church a lot. Just because I might look a certain way, or you might think a certain way, just because you might have certain prejudice, doesn't mean that you have to act on it. Doesn't mean that it's right either. You can be wrong, and it's okay to be wrong, and you were wrong that day.
I'm from Karachi, Pakistan. And because I'm a Muslim, I was very proud of my culture, my tradition, and my religion. I didn't hide it. And because of that, people discriminated me because of my ethnicity, because I was, brown skinned. And then with the 9/11, they called me a terrorist. Made me feel very sad. I was actually very upset. I try to defend my faith and my culture and tradition. And one of the students threw a paper plane at me. The teacher didn't do anything. And when I told my father after came back home, he was very angry and upset. He went to the principal's office, and I don't think they did anything. With the white supremacy and their killing of the Muslims, I do feel unsafe. Going to the mosque, or when my father goes to the mosque, I do feel worried for his safety, and I want to feel safe. I'm an American. I'm a U.S. citizen. I came here legally and everything, and I'm an American. I have every right to be here, to feel safe, to feel welcomed. Racism looks like basically just, people coming after you based on your color, people dehumanizing you because of your color. I guess I would say I'm racist against maybe white people sometimes. I mean, maybe because I'm come from a country that was, ruled by the British for over 400 years. And we've been a free nation for 70 years. And we're still living the legacy of their rule. I see myself, because I'm a first-generation immigrant, I wasn't born here, I'm not completely assimilated. It takes a couple of generations for that to happen. So my children and their grandchildren will be fully assimilated, right? And I will always be a first-generation immigrant. My memories are so vivid, hasn't gone away. I still get really angry sometimes and upset. If I were to see him in person, of course I would have anxiety. I would need a safe place to talk with him and tell him hey, what you did was wrong.
I grew up in a predominantly black, African American community. In my school, I was the minority. I was one of 2 Latino kids in a class with probably 20, African American kids and maybe 1 Caucasian kid. So my perspective was a little different when it comes to racism. Human nature is that you fear what you do not know. Now, to me, the African American community was Mr. Udek, who was a student of Howard University, that when my parents, who didn't have, past the 3rd grade, 4th grade education, couldn't help me, Mr. Udek used to tutor me for free. We had Mr. Thomas across the street. Whenever my parents got a letter, from DC or from the courts, from traffic court or whatever, he would go over there and Mr. Thomas would read them and I would translate, and I would tell my dad, this is what's going on. So, and then babysitters, all of a sudden my parents had an emergency and we needed somebody to take care of us. Mrs. Eleanor in a building next door used to take care of us. Unfortunately, not everybody has that experience where they can actually, live together with people of other communities.
When I was starting my professional career, that was alarming, and it took me a while to process, but one of my supervisors at the time, and I'm a proud Latino, and she asked me once, she was looking for a nanny for her child. she casually asked me one day in a meeting if any of my relatives had availability or an interest in serving in that nanny role. And I have a great deal of respect for people who are in that profession because there's nothing more important, in my opinion. But the assumption that simply because I was Hispanic, that must mean somebody in my network or in my family even was available to perform that job function was pretty insulting. But there are subtle things like that and overt in some cases, where people who have the best of intentions don't realize these inherent biases that they have. And some of that, honestly, is driven by society in a variety of ways. And the way to break through that is by getting to know people and to build more relationships.
I actually don't necessarily like to rehash experiences of racism with folks, and I don't think folks of color have to do that to prove that racism is real. Racism can be invisible to some, and can be the dominant lens for folks who have to experience it every day because of their identities. It could look explicit, it could look like name calling, and it could be something that's silent, something that's not seen, and seen to only people who have to experience it. My father's from Madagascar and my mother's from China. And in the United States, I'm racialized as Asian. And I think as a mixed race person, I have never felt like I belong to a specific group. But yeah, I've definitely had made judgments about people because of their race in the past. But I think that kind of speaks to the unlearning that I've had to do, and the healing from the messages that we have been taught by this system that has been rooted in white supremacy and racism, and kind of recognizing and questioning those messages that we've grown up with.